More trade rumors involving San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk. And speaking of receivers, Deebo Samuel and non-receiver, but he'll be a receiver on Netflix. The two are going to star in a new Netflix show. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers and we love it when you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Very special episode on this Wednesday. Our guest joining us momentarily. He's already on the screen. You can see him. You know what time it is if you're watching us on YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your first bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Can't believe it.
Action News 8 Sports with Nick Winkler.
Wow.
Wink, what's happening, my man? Nicholas Winkler, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host. We used to do a Niners show before I started doing Locked On 49ers, and he joins us weekly, the voice of the fan, to talk about everything going on with the San Francisco 49ers on our Winky Wednesdays. Wink, how you doing, man? Are you excited about what's going on in 49er land through the first wave of free agency?
Well, it's funny, right? It's like the middle of March, and you don't expect a whole lot to be going on in the world of the NFL, but there's just always something going on, right? And every day it sounds like somebody's getting traded or somebody's signing somewhere. I mean, Mike Williams just signed with the Jets. Like, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, what month it is. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be some NFL going, and Niners are always in it. I mean, you're talking about the defending NFC champions, so they're always going to have their noses in something, and rumored to go here and rumored in that, and yeah, it's a lot of fun even in the offseason.
As Croc and I have learned the last few years, it pays to cover the San Francisco 49ers. First of all, they're good. They're playing late into January. Sometimes they're playing in February. There's QB controversies. There's big contracts that need to be done. There's trade rumors surrounding the season and the team, and this offseason, it's no different, guys. And now it's Brandon Aiyuk that's dominating the headlines this offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. And when it comes to rumors and trade rumors, and some rumors you hear and you're like, well, that sounds kind of like BS. And some rumors you hear and you think, well, there could be something to this one. And one thing I do know when it comes to the latest reports about the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially calling the San Francisco 49ers and having interest in Brandon Aiyuk. And I heard last week, actually, that they may have been calling about Deebo Samuel, too. They're looking for wide receivers. And they traded away their own starting wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, last week. And Mike Williams, as you just mentioned, who signed with Aaron Rodgers in the New York Jets, he was on his way to Pittsburgh next to go on a visit, and they didn't let him out of New York, so he never got there. So the Pittsburgh Steelers need a wide receiver. That is clear. It's the biggest need they have. They got new cheap quarterbacks, so they might have a little bit of money to spend potentially on a wide receiver if it's in free agency. Maybe they go into the draft to do it. So when you start looking at the BS meter when it comes to rumors out there, I think the Steelers calling about Brandon Aiyuk makes a ton of sense because, of course, you're going to call about a receiver. They probably called the Bengals about T. Higgins. I'm sure they've called the Buffalo Bills about Stephon Diggs. They've probably called a lot of teams about a lot of things, and they're doing a lot of draft prep as well. Can a deal get done? Are the 49ers willing to do a deal? Does Brandon Aiyuk want to play for the Steelers and sign a contract there more than he wants to stay and sign a contract with the San Francisco 49ers? That's some of the things we have to figure out. And to add fuel to the fire, guys, on Twitter, Brandon Aiyuk hit up Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin and said, at Mike Tomlin, people say we look like twins. What do you think? And people do say they look like twins. And Brandon Aiyuk's got a lot more hair than Mike Tomlin does. But I can kind of see it. They look like maybe a father-son combo, maybe an uncle. Maybe Tomlin looks like Brandon Aiyuk's uncle. But there is some similarities there. But Croc, I'll go to you first. What do you think about the latest reports that maybe Brandon Aiyuk to the Steelers could be a trade that happens this offseason?
Clearly, I think Brandon Aiyuk is kind of playing into the whole thing of kind of knowing what's out there, what people are saying, but also understanding probably just the business side of things that 49ers may say right now we're not looking to trade him, but if an offer comes in that's good enough that kind of sweeps the 49ers off their feet, there's a chance that he does go somewhere else. And for him, his main objective right now is to get paid as much money as possible. I know a lot of fans don't want to quite hear that, right? It's like they want a team, but we've seen how the fans react. The moment a player does what's best for him, they're like, oh, get him out of here. Get him going, move on. He's not that good anyway. So we do think that Brandon Aiyuk is very good, but right now it's a pivotal time. You only have so many opportunities to cash in big on contracts. Right now, it's his opportunity. Yes, he is under contract for another year with a 5th-year option, but for him, hey, I don't want to play on the 5th-year option if I don't have to. Can someone come, play, renegotiate my contract, pay me big? And if it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, he'd be going to a great organization. So I understand it from his standpoint to kind of play into it, feed into it, but it sounds like it's picking up a little bit more steam, and there might be something to it, at least to how he feels about the situation.
That's a business, right? So Brandon Aiyuk wants to get that guaranteed money, right? Long term, get a bigger chunk right now that's just guaranteed to be in your bank account. So you can't hold that against somebody trying to provide for their family, right? And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're calling everybody. If you need a wide receiver, you got to do your job. If you're in the front office, you're calling every team out there that might have a guy who's on a 5th-year option or might be unhappy, and you're trying to get whatever's best for your team. You mentioned the fans get unhappy when a guy, wants to go somewhere else and get paid. They don't get unhappy when they cut a guy that's overpaid, right? And they're like, get him out of here. Like, that's fine. So it comes down to this. I wouldn't be surprised if 31 other teams called the 49ers seeing if Brandon Aiyuk was available, because he's a great wide receiver. And if you can get him for, less than you think, like what happened with the Justin Fields trade, like, are you kidding me? A 6th that could turn into a 4th? That seemed like a steal. If you get something like that for Aiyuk, you do it.
Yeah. And so that could have been the whole story, right? They call up Omar Khan calls up John Lynch, say, what about Brandon Aiyuk? And John Lynch says, well, it's going to cost you. We told the Jaguars that we wanted the 17th pick, and Zay Jones apparently is the report that's what the 49ers told the Jacksonville Jaguars when they called. So what's it going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers? They're going to say, okay, we need pick 20 and we need something else. You don't have any veteran receivers we want anymore. You trade away one of them. You're not going to trade as George Pickens. You need to add receivers, not lose them. And then the Steelers are like, how about a 2nd this year and a future 5th? And the Niners are like, no. See you later. That's probably how things go. And if they just said, okay, maybe we could do a conditional thing, and okay, how about a conditional 6 and 7 years? How about that? Okay, yeah, let's do it. But obviously, 49ers aren't going to be game for that, and so. That's where I think that things fall apart as far as what could happen, because I think the Niners asking price is going to be a lot. And I think it's going to be more than like the Bengals are asking for T. Higgins. And it's going to be so much that a team's going to sit there at pick 17, pick 20 and say, well, this is a good draft class for wide receivers. We'll just draft the guy. Like, we're not going to go crazy. And so the 49ers in the end are going to keep Brandon Aiyuk. I still think that's what's going to happen. But are they listening to offers? Are they willing to listen? Are they allowing Brandon Aiyuk to talk dollars with these teams that call them, right? Because, by the way, Mike Tomlin better be careful. He shouldn't respond to that tweet from Brandon Aiyuk. That might be tampering unless the Niners give him permission. Because, by the way, don't forget, Brandon Ayuk's under contract with the San Francisco 49ers. He's not a free agent.
One thing I think about, because it definitely is better value to say, oh, no, we're not going to give up a 1st and potentially a player and have to pay Brandon Aiyuk. The more logical thing to do is, let's just draft the guy. But what are the odds of you drafting a guy that turns into a 1,400-yard receiver? And that's the thing. I had Patriot fans. I'm seeing them, and they're in my mentions, and they're like, more than a 2nd for Brandon Aiyuk? Absolutely not. And I'm like, listen, y'all track record has not been great at drafting receivers, and this goes back for a really long time. So you might want to just say, you know what, throw this 1st away, and let's go get Brandon Aiyuk, a guy we know knows how to play at a high level for a really good organization, knows how to play and prepare at a championship level. He's a guy that can come in and help. Now, I'm not trying to pawn him off on anyone, of course not. But between the talks and everything, and then the video he posted on social media, did you guys see that?
Well, hold on. All right, I didn't. You're gonna have to fill me in on this one. I didn't see a video from Brandon Aiyuk. There's too much to keep track of with these guys with the social media. I'm not gonna go looking up who's following what team, and apparently Aiyuk was following the Jaguars as well when this rumor was happening last week. And if I was,
is he really?
I think he was, yeah, and he was like following Trevor Lawrence or something like that too. I don't know, but NFL players follow teams, and remember Justin Fields.
I don't think they do, Peacock. I don't think they follow teams.
Are you kidding me? You don't think that football players that are a fan of the NFL aren't following other players on other teams and following all kinds of stuff that has to do with football?
Maybe some players that you're buddies with. Like, does Brandon Aiyuk have any, like, has he ever had an interaction with Trevor Lawrence outside of, they played on the field together? Like, that would be just interesting. And they're definitely following tems. Like, they don't
at all to me.
I've never heard of a player following another team unless they start to get things get a little weird. They ding there. I mean, remember Deebo Samuel stopped following the 49ers when it got a little weird, right?
Well, this all ties into we've been through this. We're veterans in this. So I think we can make it through by using past experiences to tell us and inform us what's happening here. Let's talk about the rest of what's going on with free agency with the 49ers. Did they get better? And how about George Kittle and Deebo Samuel coming to a Netflix series near you? This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the Lombardi Trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. I love the guaranteed fit. There's a big green check right on the part that fits your car, so you know it is right. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
We do. Don't forget, we have to talk about the video that he posted.
Okay, we got to talk about the video we posted. By the way, the report about the Steelers stuff, I heard it from my guy, Matt Williamson, who covers the Steelers and lives in the Pittsburgh area, former NFL scout. Peacock and Williamson tune in daily, talking about the entire league. Latest episode, Mock Draft 3.0. You'll find out who the 49ers are selected in the first round in that mock draft. And this was Andrew Filipponi at the Pony Express. Great handle on Twitter. He is a radio personality for 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. He said the Steelers have looked into wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. He's entering the last year of his contract. Steelers would have to execute a sign and trade, but they've shown interest. So that was the report that sprung most of this conversation about Aiyuk and other teams, and announced the Steelers that have been involved in the mix. Okay. Do you remember
how plugged in is Williamson with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because that's not something to just gloss over. Like, there's certain things we hear some of these beat writers from Jacksonville, and they're saying this, and 49ers won at pick 17 and Zay Jones or whatever. And it's like, who is this person? But Williamson he's a credible person that you podcast with every day. So when he says something like that, and you had tweeted, you text me about that. I mean, that's, your ears kind of perk up a little bit that, again, there's just interest, with these guys that the 49ers have to some extent.
Yeah.
Or at least the seriousness of Pittsburgh Steelers trying to attack the receiver position.
I mean, he doesn't have Omar Khan or Mike Tomlin's ear or anything like that. And he's not a newsbreaker, so he doesn't really put his name out there and be like, oh, my sources are telling me this. But sometimes he hears things, and sometimes he passes it along. And, sometimes I hear a lot of those things, and I'm not the newsbreaker type, and I'm not the type of person that's going to go straight to Twitter and be like, oh, this is what my sources are telling me. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're not. Like, I knew about the Fred Warner signing before it happened, but and some sources, they're like, hey, don't spread this out there, but heads up. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can record my Fred Warner video and then post it instantly once the news comes out, right? And so you can find your advantages where you have them. But Deebo Samuel, we went through this, right? He unfollowed the team on social media. They requested the trade. And we saw everything. We went through all of it with these guys. And so I think part of it is just playing along. Your agent has a game plan for you. So, if they tell you to unfollow some stuff, or maybe you just get mad, you unfollow stuff. I mean, these guys are in their 20s and on social media all the time. So sometimes they get mad. And like, what do you do if you get mad? Back in the day, you used to shake your fist and yell at the sky. Now
No, back in the day, you used to move people out of your top 8. Remember MySpace?
Oh yeah, there was a time where the top 8. Oh, that would be something if Aiyuk put the Steelers in his top 8. That would be like, because that would be true. That would be big time. That's way bigger than following the Jaguars on Instagram, in my opinion. Do you follow any teams, Croc?
For whatever reason, the Carolina Panthers follow me, so I do follow them back. I have no idea why they follow me.
Here first, the Carolina Panthers have interest in former Arena Bowl champion cornerback Eric Crocker. See how that works? It's easy.
That was pretty wild. So now, a lot of these accounts of these teams are run by women, on the social media. So maybe I know the woman that runs the account, and she followed me, or actually
running the account. Of course, they're going to follow Eric Crocker,
right?
I don't know about that, but
you want to see the workout feed.
Cool Croc.
What was the video?
The video. So Brandon Aiyuk is him. Now, I'm just seeing this floating around. I don't know how new it is or old it is, but apparently this is something that was recently posted to his Instagram account, his Instagram story. But essentially it's him on the phone, and then it's like him on the phone, then he looks, hangs up, and then like waves his hand. And what I took from that, clearly he's trolling. He's trolling with the Steelers stuff, with the Tomlin stuff. Clearly he's trolling. But what I took from that is, or at least how I interpreted it, even if any of this stuff wasn't going on, I would say someone called him with something that he ain't trying to hear nothing about that, to whatever extent. So I don't know if that's exactly what he was doing. Is it a 49er thing? Is it a Pittsburgh Steeler thing? Or is it his agent saying something? And he's like, no, I ain't trying to hear nothing about that with these other teams. I'm a 49er for life. I don't know, but that's definitely what he insinuated.
Okay.
That's a smart play, right? You kind of leave it open to interpretation. So whoever wants to believe what that meant, they're going to go ahead and believe it.
So if we're reading the tea leaves, he doesn't like the Steelers, not going to the Steelers, because he's putting it out there publicly about Mike Tomlin having fun with it. He waved off the Steeler report when that happened, but he is following the Jaguars, so he is interested in going to the Jaguars. Is that where we're at?
I don't think we know where we're at. I'll tell you where we're at. I think we are at Brandon Aiyuk playing on a 5th-year option. That's if we're talking about most likely, and we put a percentage on it, I would say it feels 70% likely he'll play on a 5th-year option. I think it's 20% likely they extend him and he's locked up long-term for the 49ers. And then 10% likely that maybe something here is true, and maybe he is disgruntled enough, and the 49ers say, all right, we'll trade him. Because Deebo, no matter how we look at it, you just mentioned it. Oh, man, we went through every emotion and nothing happened. If the Jets' offer was better, something would have happened. That's the only thing that stopped it. The 49ers didn't have a ton of picks, and they offered, and the Jets offered pick 10, but they wanted 49ers pick 61, which was their next pick, and they just didn't have picks. It's like, what, you want us to give you Deebo Samuel for your 10th overall pick, but then we have to give you 61, so we don't pick until pick 90 something? Like, so yeah, we get 10, but then 90 something, and you're losing a player that's coming off of an amazing year. That makes no sense for us. I bet if the Jets offered 10 straight up for Deebo, there's a chance he'd be in a New York Jets uniform right now. So we can act like some of this stuff isn't for real or going on, or there isn't any jockeying with this. But I think there is the 49ers are open to all scenarios. The scenario that they would like to have is Brandon Aiyuk be a 49er forever. But business is business.
Yeah, the Deebo stuff too, because it was the same conversation you were having with the Patriots fans that were like, we're not giving up more than a 2nd-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. It's like, okay, don't have him then. That's fine. And that's what the Deebo conversation was. Remember all that? It was like, Joe Douglas is the swindle god. He's not going to overpay for Deebo Samuel. It's like, okay, then you don't get Deebo Samuel. And guess what happened? He didn't offer enough and they didn't get Deebo Samuel. So I think that's where we're at. And is the team going to give up like a mid-first round pick? Because that's what the Niners are asking for Brandon Aiyuk. And I kind of don't see it happening. And maybe it's a team like, so maybe the Steelers are sitting there and then they're on the clock and they really love 4 wide receivers. And the fourth one goes like 2 picks ahead of them. And then they're like, okay, now let's see. Because the guys we were going to draft didn't fall. So maybe we are willing to give up a pick. Whereas in March, they weren't willing to give it up. So maybe something happens on draft day. Then after draft day, then it's definitely not happening. And then we're going to have to do the thing all summer and find out. I disagree with you, Croc, though, about the 5th-year option. I don't think he shows up to camp. I mean, eventually he's going to play. Because he's under contract.
He's not going to hold out all season.
But he'll hold out from training camp. It could be like the Bosa thing, right?
And the 5th-year option, you have like the perks of that, right? Look, there's some perks that you get with being able to hold out.
Yeah, on the 5th-year option through the collective bargaining agreement, because otherwise, when you hold out normally, the team like Deebo, when Deebo was holding out, first of all, it was less money because it was the 4th year. And he didn't have that 5th-year option money. So it was like, it was a few million instead of 14 million. So you're probably more likely to play for, 10 extra million than Deebo was. But on your 5th-year option, the rules are that the team can take away your fines basically. Because the fines imposed on guys that hold out, they took it out of the team's hands. Because the teams didn't want to look like the bad guys. So basically it was like, okay, the team can't undo this. But on a 5th-year option, the team can take it away. So Nick Bosa held out, didn't get fined, and didn't get docked any pay for that. But you will start losing game checks. So when the regular season starts. So Aiyuk could technically not lose anything playing on the 5th-year option and hold out all of camp and preseason until week 1, basically, before he starts losing.
And you think that's the most likely scenario, Peacock?
No, I think the most likely scenario, I think it's more likely he gets traded than I think it's more likely that a deal gets done. Mm-hmm. A, B, that he gets traded before the draft.
I want to hear percentages like Croc did. I want percentages.
I think the third most likely is that would be a long holdout, and then he still plays under his 5th-year option.
But that's like small, right? That's a real small.
Sure, not showing up to OTAs in the beginning of training camp without a contract. Maybe at some point he shows up, but anyway, it'll get dicey at that point if he doesn't have a new deal, doesn't get traded at the draft. Because that was the point where the Niners were like, well, guess what, Deebo? You can talk to one team now because the draft just happened and we didn't trade you. You talk to us, and that's it, right? And that's where we'll be at the end of April if he doesn't get traded before day 2 of the draft, basically.
Real quick, or maybe we could talk about this on the other side, but let's say, hypothetically speaking, it is more of a draft day trade. The 49ers know who they want. Like, how would they attack it, the receiver position? They haven't signed any free agent receiver that even feels like it would soften the blow of losing a Brandon Aiyuk. So it's like, we're going to go into the season with Deebo, who isn't a receiver, and then George Kittle, who we want to throw the ball to twice a game, and Christian McCaffrey, who we do throw the ball to, but and then Jawan Jennings, we'll throw it to you still 2 times a game, but there's no other option for helping at that position because you did not address it with any veteran. And we know Kyle doesn't, even if you draft a receiver, Kyle doesn't want to play that guy. So do you have to have a plan? All right, if they come calling draft day, we're gonna draft this receiver, even if it's in the 2nd round or 3rd round. But just know this is how we're gonna address it, or do you go in blind and then just play it as it goes?
How great do they feel about re-signing Chris Conley? Is what you're asking,
right?
Conley, Jordan, Juwan, Deebo Samuel, and they've drafted
Danny Gray breakout season coming up.
The Steelers for pick 20. You draft Talise Fuaga with pick 20, then you draft a receiver at 31. That's what would happen.
All right,
Crocs on board. Crocs on board. You see that face?
I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah, it made sense, Peacock. It made sense.
Next, let's talk Deebo, Kittle, non-receivers on the Receiver Netflix show. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed. It's time to go dancing with America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet win. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all in the tourney. And all you got to do is win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. So the Netflix show Quarterback was awesome, and they're following it up not with another season of Quarterback. They're following it up. It was announced on Tuesday with a show called Receiver, and it's going to feature not one but two San Francisco 49ers, George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. In my opinion, they should call it pass catcher instead of receiver, because George Kittle is a tight end and not a receiver. And we always actually talk about, what's funny is they should be called blocker, because we always talk about how George Kittle needs to be utilized more and targeted more in the passing game. Joining them on receiver, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, coming soon to Netflix. Wink, how excited are you to watch this Netflix Omaha Productions program?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Quarterback. That was so good. And it didn't even have a 49er on it, and now there's two 49ers on this show, including George Kittle, who every time he's mic'd up, it's amazing to listen to. And now we're going to get a lot of Deebo too. I'm in. I'll be there day one. I'll watch it. If they put the whole series out day one, I might stay home from work and watch the whole series day one.
No, seriously. And the interesting thing is, when you think of Hard Knocks, right? Like, I would love to see the 49ers on Hard Knocks, but a lot of people push back on that. I bet receivers, which essentially is, Hard Knocks for a couple of players, everyone will be tuned in. First of all, George Kittle is made for TV. I am excited to see Deebo on TV. How interactive is he? He seems like he comes off as a guy that's really cool, but doesn't want to be bothered a whole lot. So I'm interested to see like how engaging he is and how open he is to certain things. But nonetheless, whether it's the 49ers with Deebo and Kittle or the other receivers that you mentioned, for me that just loves football, I am excited, especially if it's anything or even close to as good as quarterbacks, because we could have maybe did without Mariota, but Kirk Cousins loved it. Patrick Mahomes, I can't stand the guy because he keeps beating the 49ers, but just watching, just the interactions and how he goes about things, his preparation for the games, moving his trainer to Kansas City full time so that he can train him throughout the weeks. Just a lot of great insight from both of those quarterbacks. And I can't get enough of stuff like that. I just love football so much. So I'm excited for this show, whether 49ers were involved or not, but it definitely makes it more intriguing that Deebo, I can't wait to see Deebo let his hair down a little bit and see how he acts with the cameras on.
The respect level, I think, just went through the roof for like Cousins and Mahomes. Like you said, I can't stand Mahomes, but you watch his preparation and how into it he is and his trash talk and everything, and you're like, all right, I get
playing
it.
On one leg. When these guys are playing in these games, you kind of forget. But then when you watch something like that, you see the behind the scenes of everything it took for him to play. He played with a high. There's different grades of high ankle sprains, so I don't know to what extent Jimmy Garoppolo hurt his. But I remember it wasn't too long ago, Jimmy Garoppolo was like, I'm done for the year with this high ankle sprain. And then you watch Mahomes just not only play, but he's on one leg, he's hurt, but he's taking off for big plays in the Super Bowl. And, just to see the behind the scenes stuff for me, just as a football fan, you got to love that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to watch this one. Especially George Kittle is going to be awesome. We know that. Everybody's going to come. They're going to walk away from this just with George Kittle. He's now my favorite football player.
And I think the insight from like the two of the best route runners in the NFL, right? With Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson, how do they work? Amon-Ra St. Brown and how he's wired and how does that come off too? So I'm fascinated to see this show and. Obviously the 49ers, and I don't know what to expect about Deebo Samuel's personality in this. And we've talked about how Deebo works in the offseason and what he needs to take from some other receivers. I wonder if some of these guys get together as well. That'd be fun to see. Anyway,
Justin Jefferson. One thing we forget about that, like it's on last season. He got hurt a good amount. And then when he came back, it's like Nick Mullins is my quarterback and whoever the heck else played, Dobbs played, whoever else played for the Vikings. I'm just curious to see, like, where was his mental at in those situations? How did he work through that? What were the conversations like? Was he disgruntled? Was he upset? The injuries and all that. Like, those are the storylines right there where you get a behind the scenes look. And I think this is a great thing for football.
Devontae Adams too, right? With the Raiders and the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff. And like, this is going to be fun, man. I can't wait.
It's going to be a Jimmy G appearance probably as well. And what about Deebo's injury? Because that injury never healed. He went through that because that was the shoulder thing, and he had the shoulder thing still at the end of the year, right? And so, I'm sure he dealt with that all season long. We'll get some insight in what these guys play through as well, because those don't get touched. They don't get hurt like these guys do.
Deebo and Amon-Ra St. Brown on the field at the same time for the playoffs. Can't wait to see that right there.
Yeah. That's going to be great. Hey, real quick, while we're talking about this stuff, if you guys haven't watched Dynasty on Apple TV about the Patriots, it is so good. It's not like a fluff piece for the Patriots. It's a 10-part put on by Imagine Entertainment. It's a documentary. It is so good. Check it out.
I heard it's really good. I heard they they threw some people under the bus with the Hernandez situation. That's what I hear. I got to go watch it.
I did
and
see
the Deflategate stuff and the Spygate. Like, it's really good.
I did see a clip about
the snow game. Yeah.
There's a lot of
guys. Trust me.
The Patriots. I know you were fired up about the Josh Dobbs signing, Wink. So we got to talk about the latest with the 49ers. What do you think about Joshua Dobbs? It's a minimal contract. I think it was $2 point something million guaranteed 1-year contract for Josh Dobbs. We saw the Niners have a Nate Sudfeld a couple years ago with the $2 million in guaranteed. He still didn't make the roster, so I don't think that guarantees anything for Josh Dobbs. What do you think about Dobbs and Brandon Allen backing up Brock Purdy?
I was going to say, he's got to beat out Brandon Allen, right? This is a guy that knows the system. He's going to be ready to go. But, I mean, what Dobbs did in Arizona, and then what he did in Minnesota at first, like, it was really cool to watch that guy play football. So there's a part of me that's going to be rooting for him to beat out Allen, but that might be tough.
It's wild that Josh Dobbs will come in and like, we weren't expecting you to do so well so quick. But see you later. And then they kick him out 2 weeks later, right? What a weird career Joshua Dobbs has had.
Yeah,
now a San Francisco 49er. And any other moves, of course, we're going to have it covered for you right here as we do every stinking day on Locked On 49ers. Appreciate you, Wink, joining us every week on our Winky Wednesdays. And, of course, Croc and I will be back with you tomorrow with all the latest right here, Locked On 49ers.
See you.